All right, welcome everybody to the Mad Poet Show. Thank you for being here. I am the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. Digging it. We got Randall Wilson coming in from YouTube. Says, hi, I just subscribed to your channel. Thank you very much. Is a big Doctor Who fan and has a crush on Jodie Whittaker. I can appreciate that. In fact, I can appreciate someone having a crush on any of the Doctors. Really. I mean, they're all awesome. You know, my favorite Doctor is the one with the TARDIS. They're great. I like a lot of the classic Who as well. Man, some of that stuff was so good. I wish they, would find some of the unfortunately missing Patrick Troughton episodes. I don't know if I've seen all of the ones that still exist, but he was cool. I really liked the second Doctor. The third Doctor, he had a really good style to him. I mean, and like some people don't like the Sixth Doctor as much, but I've seen that all of his seasons. They were great. So yeah, having a crush on Doctor Who there's nothing wrong with that. Don't let anybody tell you different. Osu Gamer coming in from Twitch says, Vinny has the guitar from the show I watched. Oh, that's cool. I believe that what Victor is referencing there is Vinny of the Dead put up a picture of his guitars and other musical instruments on my Discord, and so there was a reference there. The Les Paul Custom. It's a nice looking guitar, and it's an older one too. It sounds like it could be worth a bit. Very, very good stuff. So again, wherever you're coming in from, thank you very much for being here. Always great to have people. We had an excellent stream 2 days ago where I spent more time talking than I did playing, but it was just so many great questions coming up in chat. And of course, anyone out there is welcome to comment in any appropriate way you wish. Let's keep it public friendly there. That's probably a $3,000 guitar. That sounds about right. And memories coming in from YouTube as well. As usual, and great to see you again also. So thank you very much, everyone. We're playing my 55th album right now, The Patron Saint of Murderers. We played this on Wednesday, but I had to go, and like I said, there were so many great questions coming in that we didn't even get through this album. I only played I think 3 or 4 songs off of it. So we're gonna make up for that and play this whole thing today, and then we'll jump over to City of Souls for the second half. And we'll just see what things go on. I know since he looked up the 87 Les Paul Custom selling for about 3.5K up to 5K. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. That sounds perfectly reasonable for that kind of time frame and those guitars. And those 80s 90s Les Pauls, they were really good guitars from back then. The Les Paul that I had stolen was a 96 model. And it was great. It was a Les Paul Studio, which is a little lower priced thing. With the upgrades that I had put into it, it was about a $3,000 guitar because I'd had a lot of custom work done on it. On that one, I had the fretboard removed and replaced with ebony with no inlays on the front. I actually had a custom made truss rod cover with my initials engraved in. I went to a trophy shop, and then I took and there are pickup covers on that. These and they were chrome. I took my bridge pickup cover to the same trophy shop, and had it engraved with the name of the guitar, Van Noir, which is French for black wine. My daughter accidentally named the guitar. I'll tell that story another time. I replaced all of the electronics. I mean, just so much custom work. It was just a freaking magic wand. And the crazy thing is, I'm almost sure that whoever ended up with this guitar after it was stolen doesn't use it, because it's so unique that a person who's actually using it would probably want to find out the story behind it, because there's no other Les Paul with an RJH truss rod cover. There's no other, you don't see, so either they know it was customized and they don't want to look it up, or they just don't use it and don't understand how custom it was. Because every year or so I'll go on, I'll look for the keywords in this, it never shows up. So it's nonetheless, I mean, with musical gear, the question is not what do I do if my gear gets stolen, it's what do I do when? Because if you're going to play music for a lifetime, you're going to have some of your gear stolen. I've had theft happen twice. It's a bummer. It's part of the thing, but there we are. So yeah, Patron Saint of Murderers. We're moving into the second track, which is the title track of the album. And anyone who's heard this before knows that I'm very proud of the harpsichord element in this song. Let's jump straight in. This is the Patron Saint of Murderers. Victor from Twitch says he found a small harpsichord selling for $800. That's awesome. It would be cool to have a real harpsichord. And then he points out that there's a full-size harpsichord for sale, but it's $7,000, and that's kind of expected. Harpsichords are not a cheap instrument. We got Paradigm X, cool username, coming in from kick.com, says, dude, this is the most production value I've seen in a music kick stream. Haha, well done. Thank you very much. That is an awesome compliment. I have worked very hard at getting my light set up where I want it, and I'm really pleased with the way everything has come out. I've been streaming for about, you know what? Yesterday was my 3-year streaming anniversary. 2 days ago. Well, I don't even know what the date is today. Yesterday was my 3-year streaming anniversary. I didn't even do a stream. That's totally the airhead kind of stuff I do. But back in the early days of my streams, I was actually facing the other way in the room, and so they could see the door behind us, and then I just had like 4 little lights sitting on the floor. They were synchronized and everything. It was cool, but I've built up, quite a bit since then, and painted the room, done a lot of stuff, worked out the camera changes and all that. So thank you very much for the compliment. I really appreciate that. And I will also point out that on most platforms, if you have followed or anything, I don't generally get those notifications. So for any new followers or viewers out there, thank you very much for coming into the stream, for following. Thanks to people for chatting. Another good times here at the Mad Poet Show. And for those who don't know, I'm the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. You are now an official member. You're a member for life. You're also a member after life. We have no requirements. It's the least exclusive club you can be a member of. Victor says he would settle for a smaller harpsichord because still, if someone walks into his room, they'd see a harpsichord. Yes, and you get to play boss battle music. So totally true. Yes, I dig all of your reasoning there, 100%. Oh yeah, harpsichords. Yeah, when I wrote that song, it was just as soon as I knew what it was going to be called, the patron saint of murderers. It was just instantly, it's like, this is harpsichord. This is going to be it's going to be harpsichord all the way through this. And it was kind of interesting from a production perspective because as software upgrades, other pieces of software don't always continue to work. And so there's this set of synths that I used to use called Dimension Pro, which was a holdover from back in my Cakewalk and Sonar days, which is where I started. And I'm now on a program called Reaper. I've been using Reaper for probably 13, 14 years. And as it has upgraded, it's just been more and more troublesome to use Dimension Pro. And so at the point that I got to this, I was having all these troubles with Dimension, and the Dimension Pro harpsichord is awesome. The harpsichord and the piano in there are just fantastic. And I was unable to use those, so I went and found this other harpsichord by Vasilian, and it was like, I think it was like 10 or 15 bucks or something. It was cheap, and it worked great. I'm actually back on the Dimension Pro one. I was able to go in and with the piano and the harpsichord, I couldn't do this with everything in there, but with those two, the two I wanted the most, I was able to turn those into a sound font and use them in a different way. And so I've got my own version of those. And Victor says the biggest challenge now is getting a harpsichord on the 3rd floor. And I would offer to help, except for 2 things. 1, you're in a different country, and 2, I would be unwilling to, because moving harpsichords does not sound like a good time. So yeah, good luck getting that sucker up to this 3rd floor. And then if you ever move, which I believe you're only 18 or 19 years old, it's very likely that you will at some point, getting it back down. Yeah, I would say if you can afford it, hire some piano movers because they know what they're doing and most people don't. I have helped people move a couple of pianos around, never an actual harpsichord. Sometimes people don't realize how heavy they are. And my brother, he's a great guy, not always the strongest decision maker. He works in a lot of construction, excavation type stuff. And they were demolishing an old house. And in the house, they found this upright piano. And so my brother thought, oh, you know what? The old piano, it's going to get thrown away. I want to see what happens when I crash my truck into it. And in his mind, it was just wood's going to go flying everywhere, and guitar strings or piano strings is going to go flying everywhere. He didn't know what's inside a piano. When he told me this story, I started laughing before he got to the end. I said, you didn't know what was in that piano, did you? And he's like, you do, don't you? And I said, yes, I do know what's inside of a piano. And it's a great, big, massive piece of steel or iron or some kind of really thick, heavy metal. And so he crashed his truck into this thing thinking everything was going to go flying and just totally just smashed his radiator into the fan and just... So do not crash your cars into a piano. The piano will beat you. Because pianos are freaking tough. And Victor's going to be 18, almost 18. Cool. Very cool. Yeah, so yeah, it's a fun story. And the thing about my brother is he's a good guy. He knows it was his own fault. He should have looked and see what he was crashing into before he did it. But he's like, this is going to be fun. So... Yeah, my whole family, I kind of drew a really good hand on the family I was born into. My parents are awesome. My daughter is fantastic. I mean, just as, I know parents are biased, but she was just an easy kid. She was easy as an infant. She was easy as a toddler, as a child. She didn't even cause, she did a couple dumb teenager things when she was a teenager. But we all do. We got to learn those things. So now she was really, really easy to raise. When I, talk to some other parents and hear the horror stories of the things their children put them through, I'm like, ooh, thank you, Renee. Thank you very much. So, on that particular piano, Victor says it's a shame the piano wasn't given away. That one was one that it had to be thrown away. It didn't even work anymore. When we first moved out here to Eastern Washington, Sarah and I were kind of walking around town, and just about a block away, they were cleaning up an old house, and there was a piano sitting outside. I'm like, oh, let's go check out the piano outside. And it's like the keys didn't even move. So it's like, the piano, in that case, it's not even worth fixing. Unfortunately, but old broken down pianos are so cool just to look at. I meant to grab my camera and go take some good shots of that broken down piano, but I never got around to it, and they tossed it. So, having a great piano around is awesome. Actually, even just having a mediocre piano around is awesome. So, yeah, fun stuff. I know my brother stops into my shows occasionally. I doubt he's watching right now. Public pianos need more care. Yeah, there's a cool thing they do where I used to live out in a town called Everett, which is about 25, 30 miles north of Seattle, Washington. Every summer they would bring in, probably about 24 pianos, and they would have local artists paint them all up, and they would just set them out on the street, and people would just play them, just for fun. And they were decent pianos, and they give them to some charitable organization afterward, and so the pianos do keep getting used. And yeah, it's a really cool thing to be walking down the street and here's some little kid plunking away on a piano, and then a block later there's some jazz player out there just getting after it, and that was a really cool thing out there. If you're ever in Everett, Washington, I forget which month they do that, and it's typically later in the summer so that they won't get rained on too much. You don't want to do that most of the year in Everett, Washington, because there is a lot of rain out there. But yeah, that was a very cool thing. So let's play some more music. Speaking of, there is no piano in this upcoming song. A lot of guitar though. I almost feel like there's a theme to my music where I use guitar a lot. I should think about that. This piece is called Stained with Sin. Osu Gamer says they have a piano over in one of the malls. Most of them are in London. He being a UK person. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, public pianos, it's a great idea. You know, just have stuff out there for people to fiddle with. You know, that's one of the things, like those pianos in Everett. It was really cool when you came across someone who could really play, but it was also just, I really enjoyed just like, particularly like little kids, just like kind of getting the joy, because a lot of kids don't have musical instruments in their house, and just kind of getting the joy of just, you know, the concept of creation, that hey, I can do this and I create this sound. And it's me doing it, you know, and that you know, so it's kind of seeing that, you know, as a music educator, of course, I'm inclined to like that type of a thing. That is my kind of stuff. But yeah, it's cool. It's good stuff. What do we got going on here? We're just playing music, just kind of checking everything, because I got all my different chat windows. My sheep chat thing, my new chat. Multi-chat thing is actually connected to all 10, so that's great. And so the only place, if you happen to be watching from a Freaka TV, then unfortunately I do not see your chats. Everywhere else that I'm streaming, so I've actually got like 10 chats combined over here, and they got the live space up here on its own, and Nemo and Vaughn are over here. But a Freaka TV, unfortunately, I have never been able to connect to the chat. I've tried multiple ways of doing it. It's a Korean website. It's fairly popular, of course, in country. And yeah, so annyeonghaseyo to all of our Korean friends. I did once go to school to learn Korean. When I was in the military, I went to the Defense Language Institute, learned Korean for a year. I do not speak Korean fluently. When I was in Korea, I was in Korea 3 times actually, in the early 90s. And I was functional with the language at that time. I can still say hello and order a beer. It's probably about all I can do with it anymore. Because that's really most of what we used it for. The military trained us well to be able to go to Korea and get drunk. Because that's what you do when you're in the military. That's part of the gig. Do Pruitt coming in from Twitch. Any other hobbies that aren't music related? Yeah, I'd say one of my biggest hobbies outside of music is probably sewing. I do quite a bit of that. I made this vest. This is my own work. These jeans are my own work. I haven't actually bought a pair of jeans probably since about 2008. And I had 2008, 2009, I had gone out. I just needed a new pair of jeans, so I went to a department store, and they didn't have my size. And I'm like, oh, okay, some quick Randy thinking, I'll go to another department store. And they didn't have my size. So I went to like Mervyn's, and then went to JCPenney, and then I went to Fred Meyer. I ended up going to 5 different places. No one had my size. And I'm like, this kind of sucks. And so at that point, I was just down the road from the fabric store, and I'm just, you know, get my little Randy brain going. And I'm like, you know, I bet I could make a pair of jeans. Yeah. So I went, I bought a, you know, talked to the people at the fabric store, ended up getting a couple yards of fabric of denim, and got, you know, the buttons and the zipper. And so I went home and I took apart a pair of jeans and just kind of reverse engineered in my brain as it was going on. And then I used that as a pattern, cut out my jeans, and then I just called my mom, like, hey, can I come over and use your sewing machine? And I had done a little bit of sewing as a kid, you know, but jeans are a pretty ambitious project. And the first pair took me about 3 days. And we're talking like, you know, 6-8 plus hours a day on that. But they came out great, and I finally had my jeans that I couldn't buy at the store. And then my mother was like, hey, you know, if you want to keep doing this, I have an extra sewing machine, you can have it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Right? And so, yeah, it just kind of became a thing. And I've made a few shirts. Yeah, the vests are my own design. I made the jeans, you know, quite a few things. I made a really cool long jacket that I wear, not this time of year because it's like 5,000 degrees out here. And now, Sarah also does sewing. So between the two of us, we now have, I think it's 9 sewing machines. And 6 of them work. The other 3 are more kind of mood pieces, decorative. But they're like, the oldest one we have is from 1880. And that one, we could get it working. This pair of jeans, actually, I made with an old treadle style machine where you got to use your feet. There's no electricity in it. And so that machine was built, as near as I can tell, sometime around 1905, 1910. So it's more than 110 years old, and it's just completely awesome. And so I made the whole pair of jeans with that. Really, really cool. So yeah, that's a big one. Exercise is another hobby of mine. I do a lot of running. I love running. Often I will do 6 miles a day is kind of my standard. And then in the wintertime, it's more rope jumping. A little bit of shooting. Sarah and I are both hunters, so we will go out and do some shooting occasionally to keep our chops up. And more her hobby than mine. Sarah is a botanist, so we will often go out doing plant collections out here in the desert, stuff like that. So yeah, we got a lot going on. We're a busy couple of people, and. Do It Pruitt says, does a lot of custom welding, build PCs, gunsmithing, video editing, gaming, and that's about it. Welding is awesome. I took a welding class in high school. I would certainly not call myself a qualified welder in any way, but I had a lot of fun doing that. And I did arc welding and some gas torch welding. I think it was the oxyacetylene. I could be wrong. I've been out of high school for a very long time. But welding is awesome. That is such a great skill to have. That's super cool. So yeah, and then that's kind of just seeing the variety of things that people get into in life is really awesome. So again, hey, we're getting hit with the great questions already in the show. Thank you so much, everybody. And Do It Pruitt, he and we actually met as we were. Really, we were kind of the main 2 beta testers on the earliest stages of LiveSpace. And so it was really, like, as he's pointed out in some of his streams, in the early days, it was just like Do It Pruitt and the Mad Poet going live on there, and that was it. And I think that did a lot of good for the people, the administrators, the tech crew, and so forth for LiveSpace, which is still in beta. But it has expanded quite a lot. We got a lot of new people coming in. And as I've said before, I'm just super excited for where that's going to go. So yeah, awesome. Thank you very much again, everybody, for coming in. Feel free to keep the questions coming. If you think there might be a question that I might not want to go down that path, feel free to put it up. And if it's the wrong kind of topic, I will politely decline. But I do love having the questions coming in. You know what else I like doing? This is going to surprise you. Playing guitar. This song is called An Angel Flying with Broken Wings. Memory says those angels are still flying very well. For their sake, I certainly hope so. What do we got coming up here? This one's a B flat minor. Oh, yes! The Castle of the Crimson Knight. Oh, Do It Pruitt's got another question. Do you ever currently, or have you ever in the past, had a time when playing guitar felt like work, not fun? This is a great question, and I am a bit of an anomaly. And the answer is no. It's kind of crazy. You know, for almost everything we do in life, you start a new job, a new hobby, a new exercise regimen, whatever it is. Maybe you're an author. You start writing a new book, and at first there's novelty to it, and it's enjoyable. It's exciting because you're getting new information, and then at some point it becomes a grind. And hopefully you end up coming out the other side of the grind and getting to the enjoyable part again. But for something about guitars, for me, the novelty hasn't worn off. And still, just picking up a guitar just feels good to me. Acoustic guitar, electric guitar, bass, classical, steel string, it doesn't really matter. It's almost like, I can describe it as, you know what it's like if you haven't slept in your own bed for 3 or 4 days. And then you come back home and you're like, oh, yes, this is my bed. This is good. It's just picking up any guitar kind of feels like that to me. And, some stuff that like a lot of people find really boring and mundane, like just sitting and practicing scales. I can just sit and practice scales for hours at a time. And just absolutely have a blast. Freaking love it. And it's actually one of the more challenging aspects for me as a music teacher, as a guitar teacher, is trying to get people to do things that I know are important, that I also know they're not going to enjoy the way that I do. Most people think that practicing scales is that's boring. And I remember, so there is, I should put a corollary into this. So I started playing guitar when I was 8, and I quit when I was around 11 or 12 because I hated my guitar teacher. That guitar teacher made playing guitar not fun. He made me not enjoy guitar. So that would be the only thing that would really kind of qualify for what you're talking about there. So when I started playing again, I met Kevin, who's my guitar teacher and close friend to this day. Just an awesome dude. And he makes me look infantile as a guitar player. If Kevin was standing here, I'd be like, Kev, just take over, man, because you got this. He's fantastic. And just like I said, a great person to boot. So he introduced me to the concept of scales, and I was just like, oh, yeah, this is what I want. And because I saw in it analytically that was the information that was going to lead me to where I wanted to be. And so I started doing it. I'm like, oh, I'm learning so much from this. And so now it's like I said, it's kind of tough for me when I see other people kind of being bored with it. I'm like, how can you be bored with this? It's the most amazing thing ever. This is freaking awesome. And other people just don't see it. So, yeah. Smoke machine, the smoke ooh la la machine is on. Yes, I love my smoke machine. And Do It Pruitt says that's how he feels going for a motorcycle ride. And I am not a motorcycle rider. I am proficient at riding motorcycles. And for a while, I was licensed here in Washington State. I ended up letting my motorcycle add on to my license lapse, and I don't feel that I am a well-experienced motorcycle rider enough to continue to do it safely for the long term. And finally I just felt like, you know what, I'm moving closer and closer to crashing this thing, and I'm just going to stop taking a chance. And also Sarah, she really liked that when she was, so her mother, for her mother's entire career, was a nurse. Her mother was actually born and raised in Costa Rica, And Kim she was literally a slave. She was born into child servitude, not in the U.S., but then she ended up coming here, and so she worked in a head trauma center, and Sarah worked there when she was younger, and so she's seen all these motorcycle crash victims, and not to scare like the motorcycle riders out there, but I was just like, I kind of felt like I was going to end up in a place like that. So Sarah, when we met, was very glad to know that I was no longer riding motorcycles as well. Any instruments I don't play that I want to learn, you're debating on alto sax or violin. Knowing your own capabilities is a great... Yeah, I'm going to address the second statement first. Knowing your own capabilities is a great thing. And Sarah showed me this. Sarah and I do a very little bit of jujitsu. And it's a great practice that I think people should absolutely be involved. I don't know why my batteries are going dead, but I've got some spares, so I'll change those while I'm talking. And so she had seen this article about these kind of, polo shirt wearing dads that picked a fight on some golf course. They're on some golf course, picked a fight. And it turns out that the guys they picked a fight with were all MMA fighters. And guess who won? And a statement that I've made so many times, in reference to your ability to fight someone. And I think that everyone should learn martial arts of some kind, learn boxing, learn jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, Taekwondo, wrestling. Go out and learn. It is good for you. And also, if everyone learns this stuff, there would be fewer bullies, because well-educated fighters tend to not pick fights. They generally want to avoid fights. And it's because they've lost enough times to know, hey, I don't even know who I'm fighting here, right? Like the MMA fighters, they know who they're getting into the octagon with or into the cage with. They know what they're getting into. And so the statement that I make so often is, it's great to know how much of a badass you are, but you're going to be way ahead of the game if you know how much of a badass you are not. You're going to be way ahead of the game that way. And, I see the same thing, like as a marksman. Obviously I'm a gun owner, I'm a hunter. Clearly I favor the right to bear arms. But at the same time, I know a lot of people with whom I would not go hunting or go anywhere that were using guns, because I wouldn't trust them with a gun. And so it's like, but they don't know that they're not good at using guns. They think they're great at it. So that's where, being well educated in this stuff is a really good idea. I could keep speaking on that for a while, but I want to address this other thing. Any instruments I don't play that I want to learn. I'm thinking about doing a video. I don't know if I'm going to do this or not. But I have taken a couple of piano lessons, and I absolutely love keyboards. They're just awesome. And I've got this little Casio here that was actually left behind by a former roommate like years ago. There's nothing special, but I could learn on it. And so I've thought about doing a video of, what does practice do to a person? And sit down and make a video of myself playing this keyboard for 100 hours. Like, not in a row, but half hour here, an hour there, 20 minutes there, up to 100 hours, and then just make the comparison of, here's where I started, here's what happens after 100 hours. And so keyboard, I would think, would be one, and that would kind of be the way that I would go about that. And I do have the time to do that, but it's just a matter of kind of getting the gumption up. I haven't really made the decision to do it. I do feel like I should play my alto sax more often. I love saxophones, man. I think saxophones are the sexiest instrument ever made. Adolph Sax, creator of the saxophone, nailed the sexiness factor in musical instruments. Guitars are probably number 2. But I felt really bad This one, Sarah and I had, we weren't even married yet. We'd probably been dating for a year or so. And I mentioned earlier I made this long jacket with my sewing hobby. And I actually made it as a stage piece, but it's just really cool. Kind of, it's almost like somewhere in between Civil War and steampunk. It's cool looking. And I'm the kind of guy, I'll go out in public wearing, whatever. I'm not shy about it. I'm not boring with the way I dress. Most people just wear t-shirts, and that's totally fine. I got nothing against people wearing t-shirts. I don't even own a t-shirt, right? And so I'll wear this is kind of like the mullet of fashion. I'm all, tie and vest up on top and then just hanging out on the bottom. So clearly not shy about the stuff. And I'm also 6 feet tall. And Sarah and I ran into an ex-boyfriend of hers. And here I am, 6 feet tall, got this long jacket on, just look, completely badass, and I'm carrying a guitar. And she introduced him. She said, "Oh, hey, this is so-and-so." And I didn't recognize that this was an ex of hers. I just thought, maybe someone she went to school with or something, right? So I didn't realize until afterward. And this was the first time he had seen her since they had, parted ways. And I was like, oh, that poor guy. Because he was probably like, he was shorter than me. And I had a guitar. I had a freaking guitar. And that you don't want to see your ex-girlfriend show up with a guy who's taller than you and has a guitar. So, a long way of saying, yeah, guitars are also very sexy. Pianos are like really elegant and classy, particularly like a big concert grand. Those are a very elegant instrument. They also sound very elegant. Depending on how they're played, they can be very aggressive. If you got like something like the March of the Trolls, that one, that rages, I'm trying to remember who Stuart Pruitt's got me beat. He's 6'3". I pegged you as a tall guy just from your kind of stature in your streams. I figured you were a taller dude. That's awesome. I actually once dated a gal who was 6'2". And so that was very interesting. That was probably in my early 30s. So yeah, looking up to someone for a kiss, that was very different. It was fun. She was great. Courtney was an awesome gal. I really liked her. So yeah, fun stuff. Let's see. Memories has got some stuff. With Beautiful Days back, she will be riding. Oh, she's also a motorcycle rider. Very cool. Didn't start it all winter. Yeah, some things are seasonal. And like out here, like I said, I'm a runner. And so I often run. My normal run is 6 miles a day. I kind of had to take a little bit of time off and just start my running up again because I had a big, massive blister on my foot. But in the wintertime here, I don't go running because it freezes solid. And I'm like, I'm not going to go running on ice. I know way too much about head wounds and hypothermia. And it's like sometimes out here, it'll get into negative Fahrenheit degrees, and it's like, you don't have long to live if you crack your head open out there slipping on the ice. So, Stuart Pruitt says, never played any horns, so a sax would be new. And in horns too, horns you have different types, different ways of creating the sound. So on a saxophone, you have a single reed instrument. So you have a reed, you have a hard mouthpiece, and the reed bounces against it. And then you have double reed instruments, like an oboe is a double reed instrument. So you have two reeds that bounce against each other. And then on like a trumpet, a trombone, the French horn, those you have a mouthpiece and you actually use your lips like that as a reed to create the vibration of the instrument. And so all of the the horns have these kind of different ways of making them go. And then a flute again is different, where you actually blow a column of air into it, and it's actually a vibrating column of air that makes that instrument sound the way it does. So like flutes and piccolos, those might be the only two like that. And then of course you have different types of flutes, where you have a flute more like the recorders we used in school, where you blow into a mouthpiece, and that'd be a straight blown flute. And then you have the side blown, the more popular flute that you hold off to the side like this, that would be a side blown flute, and those have different methods. So yeah, the whole winds and horns are a rather varied type of instrument. Saxophones are awesome, man. One of the cool things about saxophones. Okay, wait where you are. I'm not going very far here. Let's get the saxophone out. See how I do here. I love saxophones. They're freaking awesome. This is an alto saxophone, yes. And Memories is pointing at drums. Drums, of course. I'm gonna talk about drums in a moment. So the thing that's cool about saxophones, and this is another thing I've been thinking about making a video about, is kind of the influence that saxophone, particularly through John Coltrane, has had on me as a guitarist. Because the thing about a horn is you got this, I shouldn't say a horn, about this particular type of horn. Your saxophone, you've got a thumb hook here, so that's where you put your thumb, and you've got a thumb pad here. And you don't move your hands. So like a lot of times when people like air saxophone, you'll see them moving their hands, but you actually don't. You just move your fingers. So the lowest I reach down would be here with my pinky, and the lowest I reach up would be up here with my index finger. And then you can reach down with your pinky on this hand, and you can come up a bit with this hand, but you don't ever actually move your hand to a new position. Where on a guitar, obviously, you have to use various hand positions. And so it's a very, very different type of concept. And what it gives you is, on a saxophone, you have the entire range from the highest note to the lowest note available to you without moving your hands. On a piano, I mean, you've got a very large area where you're moving your hands. On a trombone, you've got to move your hand to get the different notes. A guitar is based, all stringed instruments. You can't just leave your hands where they are. Flutes are similar to saxophones. Clarinets. A lot of the woodwinds are similar to that. So it's a cool aspect of the concept of how these instruments actually function to get the sounds that they create. And like I said, this I don't know if I can even get this into. Let me see if I can get a close up on this. So there, you can kind of see. So there's the reed. Oops. And so that you get the mouthpiece, and so the reed flaps up and down against the mouthpiece. So that would be a single reed system that's being used in that case, like I was talking about. So yeah, awesome stuff. This particular saxophone is nothing special. It's a student model sax. There's nothing crazy going on with that. I bought that at my friend Danny used to have a music store out in Everett that I was talking about earlier. And I just went in. I was like, "Hey, Danny, I've been kind of thinking about saxophone," and he had that one there. And so I picked it up, and I don't play it nearly as much as I should, particularly as much as I freaking love saxophone music. It's just such a great sounding instrument. And I think I talked about, I don't remember if I was talking about this on stream or with one of my students, but recently I was talking about the band Morphine. If you've never heard Morphine, they're worth checking out. They were a 90s band, and I would say they were almost a jazz grunge fusion. Kind of this crazy thing. Really cool music. And a roommate of mine came home and she put the CD in. She's like, "Randy, what instrument is this? I think this is my new favorite instrument." And so and the song she played was called "I'm Yours, You're Mine." To this day, it's one of my favorite Morphine tunes. Just listening to it yesterday in Sarah's car, I went and got it gassed up. She's out of town right now. I'm getting her. That's why I didn't stream yesterday. I was getting Sarah ready to leave town. So they use a double contrabass saxophone. These things are freaking huge. They're massive, and they cost like $40,000, $50,000. I mean, they're pretty rare. There are not a lot of them. And so I don't know, they're probably about as tall as I am. These things are just unbelievable. Look up double contrabass saxophone and prepare to have your mind blown. And then listen to I'm Yours, You're Mine by Morphine. And great stuff. So I said to her, I said, it kind of sounds like a saxophone. I think it might be this double contrabass thing, but I've never really heard one, so I can't see. So we looked it up, and sure enough, it was. Thank you for the compliment. Yeah, that might actually be the first time I've actually played a saxophone on stream. So we're here making history. And so Memories put up the drum thing. So drums, I think, are one of the most important instruments we've got. I did an experiment with one of my students. I made the claim in a lesson that as a guitar player, I think drums are more important than guitars in heavy metal music. And he was like, no, I disagree. You got to have the guitar. So I'm not saying you should get rid of the guitars, but the drums are more important. And so he didn't agree with me. So for his next lesson, I set up in my computer system the song Crazy Train by Ozzy Osbourne. And I was able to find the multi-tracks for it. So I could turn on and off each of the different instruments. And so I played the song, normal. And then I muted the drums. And I'll tell you what, that song is weak without drums. Then I muted the guitar, so it was just drums, bass, and vocals. Totally worked. And Randy Rhoads is one of my all-time favorite guitar players. Absolute shame that he was so bad at being an airplane passenger, but great guitarist. And his guitars should be in that song. They're excellent. But the point is, the song still works without him. And so drums are really the foundation. And I think if we were to go on a little kind of a thought experiment, because we don't have documentation for what I'm about to talk about. This part of human history wasn't written down. There weren't, videographers out there doing documentaries about this stuff. And what I'm talking about is the origins of music. So what was the first instrument? Well, it was probably our voices. Singing was probably the first way that we made music. We're going way before the Dark Ages, baby. We're talking back, in the early tribal customs. And so very likely the earliest instrument was voice. But there's absolutely an argument to be made that percussion, clapping of hands, stomping of feet, hitting our chest, hit the side of the trees or your tents or whatever you're living in. So percussion, it might be that singing and percussion may have actually arisen simultaneously. And there are a lot of things that could be pointed out to where this is where Homo erectus became Homo sapiens, or I'm not really into the paleontology of it, but this could be one of those points where you say this is one of the things that helped us actually become human, was the creation of sonic art. So I'm inclined to think, and I have no evidence of this, I cannot prove this, this is a thought experiment, pure conjecture. I'm inclined to think that that percussion and vocals probably arose simultaneously or very close to it. And to this day, that still is just pervasive in our music. The thing I'm doing here without vocals, in many ways, makes this a lesser form of music. Now, I enjoy instrumental music. I don't think that instrumental music is a wrong thing to do. I don't think there's a right or wrong way to create art, be it visual, sonic, or otherwise. But yeah, often, for me, putting on I was just listening to a Mildred Bailey album earlier today. And I'm like, Mildred. For people who don't know who Mildred Bailey was, she was a blues singer back in kind of the 1940s, I think was kind of her high point. so I listen to someone like Mildred Bailey, or I listen to he, him on Kick. This is not a recording, and I do not have a lot of money. I will explain in a moment. But thank you very much for coming in. So, when I listen to those old records, like Billie Holiday is probably my favorite singer. Just beautiful, right? And there's just something about that hits in a different way, that hits the emotive aspect of musical input for humans in a different way when we actually are listening to voices. This is crazy. This is so awesome that I've had this. No, this is definitely not a recording. This is great. I've only played 4 songs. We're already like an hour into this stream. I totally love it when I get all these awesome questions. This has been so great. So that's kind of it. And Do It Pruitt says, screw it, I'm playing Spoon. You know what? That's perfect. That's what you're talking about. Percussion. Spoons is a form of percussion, baby. I love it. Do it. So him says, I must have stupid money. Actually, I don't. We are pretty middle class, Sarah and I. We don't have any children, which does make it a lot easier to do this. I have a 30-year-old daughter from previously, and so, being that she's an adult, she's off doing her own thing, and that's all freaking awesome. And she's a great person and does some very cool art in her own right. But really, the lights here. If you watch my streams for a while, you are almost guaranteed to see a point at which that light down there, that one's the most likely one. It'll just start doing its own random thing. Because these lights, they go for about $10 each. So, it's a cool setup, but it's not nearly as expensive as it looks like. And another thing that really helped in this particular room, so this room used to have white ceiling and walls, and then like the bottom half of the walls were just kind of this wood stuff. And no, this is not a green screen behind me. No. These are actual lights. In fact, I'm going to get going on a song in a moment so you can see what these lights actually do, because these are all going to be synchronized to the music, and it's pretty fun what I do. I covered the bottom half, all the wood stuff, with some black boards. And then I was able to run all my cables behind that, and so these are like back here, not green screen. So you can see the guitars moving there and stuff. So those are actually, you can't really see it in here, but I got 7 guitars hanging back there off nooses. And those my most recent guitar is the one right next to the swinging white one. And I got that like 5-6 years ago. So I rarely buy new guitars. So no, not a green screen. So let's get. Thank you very much for the compliment on the content. Him. And again, him. I am unable to see if people follow me on Kick. So if you have followed, thank you very much. And just thank you very much for being here as a viewer. For everyone, wherever you're coming in from, I'm streaming out to 14 different websites. So we're gonna play this next song, and we're gonna kind of show off my light system to the new kids out here. This piece is called "The Castle of the Crimson Knight." And for those who don't know, right now we are playing my 55th album. I have a total of 66 albums I have released. Currently composing albums number 67, 68, 69, and 70. And this is The Castle of the Crimson Knight. The album is called The Patron Saint of Murderers. Let's do this. Oh, and I do not have the right window activated because I've been talking and screwing around for the last 20 minutes. So there's an example of what I do in my stream, he, him. So let's get caught up on chat here. Memories from YouTube saying she will soon get an electronic rolling drum. You can connect it to the. Yo, that is such a good idea for practicing drums, getting the electronic kits. And if you've already got an audio interface, yeah, that's a great way to go about it. The drum samples, like if you start running your kit through your interface and run it into, I use Superior Drummer 3 for my drum program, and it's just so good. You can get such great sounds out of it. Strongly encourage. Very nice. And Do It Pruitt says, I got him chatting, my bad. Yeah, Do It Pruitt knows that if you start asking me questions, I don't shut up. Like I said, this is great though. He, him says, this guy is a factory. That is going on the quote list right now. Also, memories. 2 days ago, you put a chat up and I said, that's going on the quotes list. And I lost it. If you remember what it was, put it up again. Because I just remember it being really good. And no idea what you actually said. And I couldn't find the chat again to actually put it up. This guy is a factory. I love that. This guy is a factory. That's beautiful. Going on the quotes list. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I agree with Do It Pruitt. I'm really glad that you're enjoying what I do here. Yeah, I do try very hard to have a high tier, high quality of content. It took so long to get these lights working the way they do, and every time a light goes on or off, I have programmed that in advance. So I basically go through with, I write all my music as sheet music prior to recording. And so then I'll go through with my sheet music. In sheet music, I use that to program my lights, and then I transfer it into light data later. And so I just go in, I'm like, okay, I want my lights to turn on here. And that's why, like, when there's like a drum fill and then the white lights start going for it. That's all, that's how I choreograph it, basically. So so each album that I do has on average around 25,000 light commands. So it's programming lights is the single most boring thing of my entire production that I do, but I love the outcome of it. And Do It Pruitt says, this is the real show. I just like to get them talking. And like I said, yeah, I love the questions, man. I'm totally happy to do, if we knock out, 3 hours and I only play 3 songs, I'm fine with that. Because, I'll talk about this stuff. Get me talking about music theory. That's the big one. I can talk about music theory for freaking ages. Do I sing at all? I love singing. I have struggled very significantly with singing through my entire life. I've never taken the genetic testing, but I know there is a gene that does equate to a person's ability to sing in key. I think it's a pretty good bet that my gene for singing in key is turned to the off position. I have worked really, really hard at my singing. And so right now, I am writing 2 albums. One is called Tokyo Sunrise, and that is Tokyo, Tokio. It's a small town here in eastern Washington that actually burned down to nothing in 1998. It had a population of like 1,800. It was one of the larger small towns out in eastern Washington. And one person died in it, and everyone else just went elsewhere. They never rebuilt the town. So there's just these little grain silos there, and there's one house where Tokyo used to be. And I think there's a truck stop across the road that's technically considered part of Tokyo, but the actual Tokyo is really just that one house in the grain silos. And so I was out hunting one morning, sun's coming up, and I see the Tokyo Silos off a few miles away, and it's Tokyo Sunrise. That's a great title for an album. So I just kind of locked that away. And then the other album I'm writing is called The Thief of Time. And that is a concept album about how we steal time from ourselves. Every day, every minute. You know, and like it's basically an album trying to answer the question, if you could have back all the time that you've wasted, what would you do with it? And since you can't have all that time back, what are you going to do with all the time you haven't wasted yet? So both of those albums, one of the problems with being a fidgeter is you never stop moving, then you end up stepping on your go button. So those both are, I intend to sing on both of those, which means none of you may ever hear it. About 5 years ago, I made a very significant, I should say I garnered a very significant understanding about why I was singing off key, that has helped significantly. I've been working on that, and I sing almost daily. I practice my singing almost daily. And I've done a few test recordings recently where I'm starting to feel like I might be reasonably happy with my vocals. And so it's a possibility that that's going to happen. I hope it does. I'm kind of jumping around here in chat. Him asked 66 albums. And yes, I have released 66 albums. I released my very first album in 2004. It's called Confusion. All of my albums are available to listen to for free on YouTube. And also, if you go to themadpoet.net, every single one of those YouTube videos is embedded on my website, themadpoet.net. It's the place to see me. So yeah, and then I released my second album in 2018, August 3rd. And then for a period of 11 months, I released one album every week. And so I was actually going through, I had gotten myself to where I had a process to where in 7 days, I've done it as fast as 5 days. I can go from a blank slate to a complete album in 5 days. The 5 day, I've never broken the 5 day mark. This particular album you're hearing this is when Sarah and I were moving to Eastern Washington. So this one was actually written in 2 different places in Western Washington, and I finished up when I got here. This one was not part of that, but the next, I think after this one, I did my next 10 albums in a row, or 8 albums, something like that. One per week. And that is some of, I think, my best work in that period. And then I took about 2.5 years actually on my 65th album. I found that I was not satisfied with my level of production. There were things in that album I really wanted to be able to hear that just weren't coming through. And so I actually contacted 14 different audio engineers, and 11 of them couldn't even send a contact back. One contacted me back right away, or rather his office did, just saying, a guy named Graham Cochran, he's fairly well known on YouTube and a really cool guy. And his office was just like, hey, right now Graham is not taking on any clientele. I'm like, cool, that's perfect. One person was not willing to take my project on. I don't know if they thought maybe they weren't at the right level for it, or what. They just said they weren't going to take it. And the other guy that actually contacted me said, you're so close. Here's just a couple things to try. And then I was going to talk with him more, but he ended up having to get out of the Ukraine. So I was going to give him that. I did work with a couple of my friends on that, Ray and Jake, both of whom I've worked with other music projects on. And we got everything in order. And then I just recently released my 66th album. So right now I'm working on album 67, and I'm taking a little extra time on this one. I've mentioned this before on my streams, but I'm taking a little extra time on this. On every album I do, I dedicate a song to someone. That song we just heard, Castle of Crimson Night, that was dedicated to my buddy Duncan. He and Jake and I all played together in a punk band. But so on my next album, I'm actually writing what I consider to be a tribute song. It's a tribute to a guitar mentor of mine who passed a few years ago. And and just because of the level of impact that Ron had on me, I feel like I want to give a little more attention to certain aspects of what I'm writing in this song. And also that song is going to be a half hour long. It's 30 minutes, 3 seconds, which is not my longest song. That will actually be my 5th longest song. I do have a song that's 44 minutes, 22 seconds. That's my 63rd album, has just that. And then every 17th album I release is part of a series called Asemic Writings. And each of those albums is just one song, and that song is always exactly 52 minutes, 25 seconds. And when I say exactly, I mean, when I'm in my recording program, I bring it down to within 1/1000th of a second for beginning to end on those. So that's kind of going on right there. And that's a great statement, Memories. No green screen. The Mad Poet is making Woodstock in his house. Yeah. Woodstock is that was a cool thing, a cool piece of history right there. So do it for us. A side note, if you want to meet my wife, she's the other person on Live Space right now. I'm not sure which one that would be because we've got all the new people. Feel free to send me a username when she goes live or whatever. I have followed everyone I could find on LiveSpace. I'm following like 160 people on there or something. So if she goes live, I do get a notification, but I'll have no idea who it is. You love singing, but do you sing? Yeah, so that's the thing. I do sing. I just don't know if I'm good enough to. I don't know if my singing will get to a level where I'm comfortable putting it out to the public. Because where I sit with that. She's on. She's live right now. She's live right now. So that would be Kimmy Jean. Okay, cool. I don't think I followed that one. Her. No, I am following her. Excellent. Cool. Hey, that's awesome. I'm actually going to turn that back off just because all the bandwidth I'm already using. But I will check her out later. Kimmy Jean, I got it. So when it comes to whether or not I release my singing, I don't mind performing right at the edge of embarrassment. I will go out and I'll do silly stuff. Like I lost a viewer. This was so awesome. About a week ago, someone came in on the platform D Live and was kind of oh wow, this is so cool. And then asked, I was talking about my albums and stuff. Oh, 69th album, awesome. And I said, yeah, on my 69th album, I'm going to do that show in drag. Because again, I don't get embarrassed by that stuff. And then he immediately unfollowed me and told me he was unfollowing me in chat. I just loved it. Totally awesome. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, if someone's out there that's manhood is, going to be threatened by the way someone else dresses, then I don't need you as a follower. I know, it's just fantastic. So I will perform right on the edge of embarrassment, but I wouldn't put a piece of music out that would actually embarrass me. And so that's where the question is for me of whether or not I decide to put the vocal albums out. I really want to. I've also got, I would kind of be, I don't know you well, Do It Pruitt, but I think that you and I have talked enough to know that probably wasn't going to bother you too much. That didn't seem like something that would upset you. I think that the people in here right now, like he, him, if they are putting out their pronouns, they're probably okay. If they're using their pronouns as a username, they're probably cool. Memories, the gal from France who watches regularly, she doesn't seem like she's gonna be bothered by this. And if anyone is bothered by it out there, then cool. Go. There are tens of thousands of other streams happening right now that people are welcome to go watch, and I would encourage them to. So yeah, that's really just what it comes down to for the singing. And I also have a cover of Chris Isaak's Wicked Game, which is just a seminal piece of music. And I've heard a lot of covers of that, and I've never heard one anything like the way that I covered it. I will eventually put that out, even if I end up having Sarah or someone else sing on it. And that one, my friend, the way it's set up is I do the two verses, because in the original it's verse 1, verse 2, verse 1 again. So I just do verse 1, verse 2. On verse 2, it's a duet with my friend Gitana, who's an amazing singer. And then my friend Vivian, she has some backup vocals on there. And then my plan is to sing both verses. So it'll be me on the first verse, Gitana and I together on the second verse. And it starts out with this kind of, it's more of like a creepy piano version of the song. And then the last half, it's got all this raging metal. It's super cool. So I would love to put that out. And I would love to have my vocals on that. And you've heard that you're a decent singer, but you haven't got to the point of recording. And yeah, you know, if you are not, well, you probably even know this from watching back your own, because you've streamed quite a bit. And so you know, very likely from watching your own streams back, that it can be a bit of a humbling experience to put yourself on video, to put yourself on audio, and listen back to yourself and be like, oh, I could improve this. And, you know, and sometimes it's like, oh gosh, just the way I'm sitting makes, you know, my chin look weird or something, right? Or, you know, the way I'm holding myself on camera, I should work on that. Or it might be like, you know, the rhythm of your speech or whatever, you know, or you're singing it. So there, yeah, it can be very humbling to get to that. Yeah, we've all had that when we start. It's the same as like the first time you hear yourself on an answering machine. Oh, my voice sounds like, and everyone's like, yeah, that's you, man. And you're like, no, I sound like Darth Vader. What are you talking about? Luke, I'm your father. I mean, doesn't that sound just like Darth Vader to everybody else? So it's great stuff. It's great. But yeah, awesome. Let's pick the pace up here a little bit. This one applies to us all. This song is called "The Vulture Awaits." Oh, and I'm on the wrong, because again I was fiddling around and I can't stop fidgeting. Okay, now the vulture waits. Ugh. Whew. It is getting toasty out of Eastern Washington. Yes, indeed. What we got here? Memories says, I noticed the chat replay is available one day after you're live and not. Oh, interesting. I just checked. I found this. Yes! That was the one. That was the one. I'm totally going to get that this time. Thank you. Okay, so that's. I will have to look more closely at that. I didn't realize that it came up later like that. That's kind of interesting. I'm not sure why that would be, but okay. Dracula. And so the quote was, "This is the song Dracula would listen to while taking a bath and shampooing in his castle." Love that. So good. I love the witticisms. Fun stuff. All right. And so I'm already moving my mouse around. So let me make sure I'm actually on the right. I've done that so many times. I'll like click on a different window and then all of a sudden my stuff doesn't work right. There was a stream last week, I think Do It Pruitt was watching for part of it, where I had my microphone off for like the first 6 songs. So in between songs, I'm talking away and no one could hear me. And there was one show I did, this was probably 2 years ago, where on the broadcast software, I use a software called OBS, stands for Open Broadcast Software. It's a very popular. It's kind of the standard. There are some other ones, XSplit and Streamlabs that people use, but I like this a lot. But the start streaming and start recording buttons are actually right next to each other. And I hit start recording, start doing my show, and you know I've never been someone with a huge amount of followers, so it's not crazy to do 45 minutes without someone chatting, and particularly back then, even fewer people watching. And then I actually got a text from one of my regulars, one of my friends, like, "Hey, are you playing tonight?" And I'm like, "Oh." So I started the stream over. It ended up being an awesome stream. I ended up just doing the whole thing over. Just sat there and played to myself for 45 minutes, talking away, yap. Just like I know what's going on. Tech stuff. Pruitt and I have talked about this a few times. You're going to do this, you're going to have to deal with some tech issues. That is part of the game. You are not getting away from it. So, let's play some more music. This one's called Unspoken Malice. Oh yeah. I don't know how much showing on film, but I am like drenched in sweat. I know we got some new people watching in here today, so you may not know what's about to happen, but just because the way my voice changed, all the other people who do know what's about to happen know what's about to happen. Because ladies and gentlemen, we have arrived at the G sharp minor portion of the show. You are welcome. This song is called Two Kinds of Anger. And Memories on YouTube asked, do I like ESP guitars? Japanese-made, George Lynch models are sick. Yeah, I do like ESP guitars. I've played a few of them, and they're great. The ESP guitars I've played have always struck me as just being very well crafted, good guitars. It's the kind of guitar, I would consider them kind of a mid-range guitar, which is often where I tell my students to go to. Go to the mid-range stuff because it works well. You're not going to get that much more for spending a lot more money. I think they're a very solid guitar. They play well. They stay together. I've never played the George Lynch ESP guitars, so I can't speak to that particular model, but George Lynch tends to endorse pretty cool stuff. I'm a George Lynch fan. He, for those who may not know, if you know the band Dokken from back in the 80s, one of the hair metal bands, George Lynch was a guitar player. He's a great guitarist. So good. I actually saw them live in '89. Really good. It was the Monsters of Rock tour. Dokken was there. That was my first time seeing Metallica. That was the only time that I saw Van Halen. I'm trying to remember some of the other bands that were there. It was in '89. It's been a while. Apologies for not having the full lineup. Guys from Def Leppard are on Jack's. I really don't know I don't follow equipment for particular persons much, so I wouldn't be sure on that one. But I've got a Jackson. My V, it's black. You can probably barely see it. That's a Jackson, and my white one is a Charvel. Charvel and Jackson are essentially the same guitars. How long have I been the Mad Poet? Okay, so I wanted to call myself the Half Mad Poet, and I got that from I got the idea from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. There was a point in the Hitchhiker. I love the guide. That is like my favorite books. There was a point in, I want to say, the fourth book where they picked up this journalist who was half mad, and I just love that idea of half mad. And then there was a painting by Michael Whelan called The Mad Poet, and I thought that was also extremely cool. And I kind of combined those in my head for the Half Mad Poet. But there was already a band using that title at the time, and I think the Half Mad Poet, I think it's an all-gal band out of like Chicago or something. I believe they're still active. So that was what I wanted to call myself, and that would have been back around early 2000s. I came up with that idea, and then realized that someone had already stolen it from me before I did it. So then I was in this group, and we were doing these really cool productions, and we were starting to get a bit of a following. We were consistently drawing crowds of 600 and 700 people, and there was a theater we mainly played in called the Historic Everett Theater, and it had a capacity of 800. And on one of the last shows I did with them, we were within like 20 people of selling out that theater, and that was awesome. And in that, we did these big productions with, we had like fire dancers and sword fights on stage, and dancers and actors, and this big production. It was really cool. And unfortunately, politics got in the way, as just one of the most mundane, normal stories that's ever happened to a band happened to us. And technically, I guess they're still together. I've heard that the last show they did was for like 50 people in some bar, and I'm like, it was unfortunate. But so when I parted ways with that group, I wanted to put together another group to do that kind of thing. And that's why I was writing a couple of albums that also have not been released. These would require both male and female singers. One called The Death Sonnets, which is basically would be a onstage concept album about two two people who were born into slavery as gladiators, a male and a female. They fall in love. They end up escaping from their masters, and they're both like championship gladiatorial fighters, and it's just their story. And another one, and the one that this song, whether I ever do it on stage or not, I will absolutely finish. This song will probably be at least an hour and a half long. It's called The Villain. I've written over an hour of it already. I've written a lot of the lyrics for it. And this is the story of Jack the Ripper's great-granddaughter continuing his legacy. And if there's a bucket list piece of music for me to finish, it's The Villain. So at that point, I decided that band would be called The Mad Poet. How long have you been doing these shows online? I'll get to that as part of the story. So I wanted to call that group The Mad Poet. And, well, I wanted to call it the Half Mad Poet, but again, that was taken. So I started going by the Mad Poet at that point. And then right away, I started running into all of just the completely normal things that make it so bands don't work. You know, and when you see a band like ZZ Top or Rush, who have had, in the case of ZZ Top, not a single lineup change. Rush had one lineup change right after their first album. And, you know, decades of work and lots of music put out, you know, that is so rare. And even bands like, you know, Iron Maiden or Metallica have had lineup changes. Still very rare for bands to get a group of people that can work together on a consistent basis over time. And right away, I started having people, hey, I'll be there for practice, and they don't show up. Yeah, I know my parts, and they'll come and do a demo recording, they can't do their parts. So I just started, and so I started to realize, and this was kind of mid-teens for the decade, early mid-teens, so around 2014 or so, and I was just like, it's not worth it. And I realized at that point, if I don't do vocals, then every instrument that I'm unable to play, my computer can. Because the sampling technology has, and I talked about this a little bit on a stream recently, that it's not the fault of the people using the drum machines that they're using drum machines or drum programs. It's the fault of the drummers who don't practice and don't show up. And then get upset that you used the drum machine. Well, if you had showed up, we wouldn't use a drum machine. So I basically realized, you know, I can just have computers do everything that people could do, and the computer will show up and know their parts and be able to play. So then I started doing some shows at a local coffee shop, and I was just taking my red guitar back here, just an acoustic guitar, jazz style guitar, and I would just sit in the corner and just play guitar, you know, just very light. You know, and people would kind of half pay attention to it while they're sitting there with their laptops and their lattes and stuff. And it was a paid gig, so I was making money on it. It was great. And then my buddy John, who's just a great guy, says, I dare you to sing a Taylor Swift song. Now remember what I said earlier, I'm willing to be on the edge of embarrassment. I knew I could do this. I won't take a dare. If I take a dare, you can guarantee yourself, I already know that I can do it. I will not take a dare. I will take any dare if I know I can do it. I will not take a dare if I don't know I can do it. So for this, I decided to kind of make a metal version out of Teardrops on My Guitar. And I was like, well, because I'm gonna have to bring my computer in to basically use as a sound system. And so I was like, I'm just gonna write a bunch of backing tracks to play to. And so I realized, okay, I have 2 weeks to write a show's worth of material. How am I going to do this? And I realized at that point that that's where if I write the drums first as the foundation to build everything on top of that, that's the most efficient way for me to make music. It's not necessarily for everybody. So I did that. You know, if I look back at that music, it's very unsophisticated music, but I pulled the show off. And so that led me into, okay, I'm going to be the Mad Poet, and it's just going to be me. Basically, I can now fire every musician in the world, replace them with robots, and go for it. And so after that, I started really refining that system of making music rapidly. And so then I released my my second album, but my first one as the Mad Poet on August 3rd of 2018. So that's when I officially started going publicly by the Mad Poet. And then once we moved out, so we were living in Western Washington, a town called Snohomish, close to Everett, up a little north of Seattle. And little teeny place. If we'd had kids, it would have been horrendously small. It was fine for the two of us, but it wouldn't have worked for doing streams. But that was where I was when I first was introduced to the concept of streaming. And I watched a guy on Twitch who goes by Scene of Action, who's also a very sophisticated light show and stuff. Very cool stuff. He hasn't streamed, I don't think, in over a year, but I wish he would, because he's just so good. And so then I started thinking about it. And then when we moved out here and this became my office, I was like, dude, I could totally turn this into a performance space. And so then, it was actually May 18th, so 3 years and 1 day ago, started streaming. And I just realized it's very appropriate that I'm actually playing the patron saint of murderers right now, because the very first album I ever played on stream was the patron saint of murderers. So this is kind of like my 3-year stream anniversary, but I didn't even realize that until like on my second song or something. Like, oh, I just passed. So yesterday I passed my streaming anniversary for 3 years. So that's kind of fun. So I felt like the 18th was a significant date for some reason. I totally should have streamed yesterday. But like I said, Sarah's out of town for work, so she left yesterday, so we were getting her packed up and loaded up and out of the house safely and efficiently. And so that's what that was all about. So here we are. Oh, your 3 years was the 28th of March. Very cool. That is my friend Jen's birthday. And then the day after that is my other friend Jen's birthday. And then 2 days after that is my birthday, March 31. And that's because I'm freaking old. Also, Angus Young's birthday, March 31. And I think Johann Sebastian Bach might have shared my birthday too. I could be wrong about Bach. I know that Angus Young is. Do you only do original music? Do I ever do covers? I do almost exclusively original music. The only cover I have in place right now is on my 65th album. The album's Incomprehensible Isolation. I think it is my best work to date. I think it's better than the 66th album, which came right after it. And on that, I do heavy metal variations of Three Blind Mice. And that is my only cover that I have released on an album. If you find my SoundCloud, which I believe is listed as Oddologist, Oddologist, like the study of odd, Oddologist, one who studies odd. On there is a cover of, and I sing on this. I do sing on this one if you want to find it. It's a cover of While My Guitar Gently Weeps by the Beatles. And that one, I'm pretty pleased with the way that came out. Bah, correct. And then there's also a cover on oddology.net, Oddology, the study of odd, that I did with my friend Deirdre of Paint It Black by the Stones. And that's when she did the singing on. So yeah, so I've got the Three Blind Mice cover as an official part of my album. You can hear me singing on my SoundCloud on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and then I did the cover of Paint It Black by the Stones with Deirdre. Those are my covers. So boom. Yeah. So feel free to look those things up. It's pretty fun stuff. All right. And I do definitely want to release the Wicked Game cover. And like I said, that one, if I decide that my vocals are just like never going to work, I will probably get someone else to sing the parts that I wanted to sing on it. But that one, I mean that piece is, by Chris Isaac. He just, he was so emotive in that. And they just nailed the making of that song. And I feel like, to me, like I mentioned earlier that I did the Taylor Swift cover at the coffee shop. It's totally okay to be out of questions. Do it, no worries. I talked about doing the Taylor Swift cover. I like Taylor Swift, and that surprises some people. I actually like country music a lot. I'm a big country music fan. And the artist that really turned me on, I think, to country the most, and still one of my favorites, is Clint Black in the 90s. I like a lot of the old stuff, Hank Sr. I'm a big fan of Hank III, Hank Williams III, so Hank Williams Jr.'s son, who does country more like his grandfather and also does heavy metal. I've seen him live, fantastic. He really does a great live performance. So I love country music, but I like Taylor a lot. I like her music. I think she's quite good. And, some people have asked me about Taylor Swift, and I say, particularly like when she was getting started, and I say, she still has immature vocal cords, because the vocal cords connect at the front is basically where they're hinged, and then the back is where they close up. And so when they vibrate apart from one another, it's kind of like that type of a movement there. I don't know how well that shows up on camera. And so in our younger days, the back of our vocal cords have a small gap. And that's part of what gives us a less mature sounding voice. And it's really not until kind of your mid-20s that closes up. And that's why Taylor sounds so much more mature today than she did when she was 17. She was a kid. Her vocal cords were not fully mature. And so back then I would tell people, give her a few years and let her voice become more adult. And she's going to be every bit as much of a powerhouse as Bonnie Raitt or Reba McEntire. Again, two country artists I really like. So, yeah, I think she's great. And so the point of all this is you will never hear me do a cover tune of an artist that I dislike. You will never hear me do a cover song from the band Poison. You will never hear me do a cover of a Justin Bieber song. Not even to make fun of them. Because if I don't respect a musician, I'm not going to spend any time on their music. If I don't respect a person or a musician, and in the case of the band Poison and the artist Justin Bieber, I have no respect for them as musicians or as people at all. So that would just never happen. I would totally do a cover of like a Ronnie James Dio tune. I would totally do a cover of Barry Manilow. I love Barry Manilow. I grew up on Barry. Man, this stuff's fantastic. In fact, I have put together a cover. I've never released it, but I put together a cover of Barry Manilow's Copacabana, a metal cover. I call it Scary Manilow. So yeah, I will only do covers like that. And so and to continue to bring this back full circle, with Chris Isaak, again, I really like Chris's music just in general. And that particular song is so iconic that if I can't do justice to the song, I'm not going to put it out to the public. And I think I've done justice to the song on everything that is in place. The piano part, the guitars, the drums, everything else. I got all these timpanis and stuff in it. Everything in place, I feel that I'm doing justice very effectively to the song. I think it's very respectfully done. But I've got to get the vocals right. And so I'm totally okay putting that song out with someone else singing it. If I would like it to be me, but if that doesn't work out, I will absolutely get someone else to do the vocals on that song. But it's got to be someone who can pull it off. That's going to be a way that'll make me feel good about putting it out. Because it's freaking Chris Isaak, man. The guy was freaking awesome. Yeah. Memory says that she never listened to Lana Del Rey and she made a grunge cover of hers. So I'll have to look that one up. I like Lana Del Rey. She's got some great stuff. Sarah listens to a lot of Lana, and she's got a great voice. She's got a really great voice, Lana Del Rey. It's got character to it. I really dig that. So yeah, I'll have to check that out. That's really cool. And for those who may not know, Memories, who's tuning in on YouTube, she has a YouTube page you should totally check out. She does some kind of like grungy shoegaze metal type stuff. Very cool music. I really like the ambient feel that she puts together in her music. She does a really good job of it. So definitely check that out. I'm always into promoting other artists who are doing cool stuff. So yes. All right, let's play some music. Uh-oh, I just did something I shouldn't have done, but I can fix that easy. Done. This song is called Blessed Are the Wicked. That pipe organ that I use, the Baja Blessed just followed on LiveSpace. Thank you very much for the follow on LiveSpace, my friend. Much appreciated. Oh, also, I don't know if you're watching out there right now, but I did see I have a new follower on Twitch from I think yesterday. Followed while I wasn't playing, called Spooky Angels. So Spooky Angels, if you're out there, thank you very much for the follow on Twitch as well. But yeah, that pipe organ patch that I use, that sampler, it's called the Leeds Town Hall organ. It's a free sample that I found online, and it is just like hands down the best pipe organ sound I have found. It's so freaking awesome. Just like, wow. Oh, cool. Memories said she was working on a new track and released it just before I went live. A new original track from Memories. I am definitely looking forward to checking that out. That's cool. I love original music. I mean, I like covers a lot. There have been a lot of great covers put out. And, and some of them, it's cool when you get those covers that are just like massive improvements on the originals. And one of the best examples there is Hurt, as done by Johnny Cash. Originally written by Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. And I saw an interview with Trent talking about that. And I didn't know this until that interview, but that was actually the last thing that Johnny Cash ever recorded. And Trent was just talking about, to have someone as iconic as Johnny Cash do one of his songs. He's like, what an honor for all of, to have someone of that level do his music. That's huge to have Johnny, and then to have it be the last thing he ever did in the studio. He said that was just like a very emotional thing for him. It's like that's just and I think even Trent probably agrees. Johnny Cash really kind of made the definitive version of Hurt. It's so good. So I do love covers, and yeah, I need to do. If I get the voice, if I get the vocal, if I get comfortable with it, I'll probably do more covers. So. Thank you very much, Memories. Yes, and yeah, thank you very much to all my new followers out there. As I've said before, on a lot of these platforms, I won't actually be notified if you follow, and that's something I would like to be able to have better information about. I'm kind of slowly working on it here and there, but so sometimes I will not know if a new followers come up. But I do appreciate all of my followers, and viewers, and chatters, and everyone out there who's watching and listening and smelling. And because I haven't said it in a while, if you are new to the show, I'm the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society, and this song is called 6 Scars. We got Baja Blessed is also coming in on Twitch. Cool. So I do see new followers on Twitch. So Baja Blessed, thank you very much for the follow both on Twitch and on LiveSpace. I know LiveSpace has been really glitchy on video lately. I know my video on there is up, and it's been completely stopped for over a half hour. So it's like whatever. Memory says, soon this chat is going to be crazy as Woodstock spectators. Beautiful. Discovered your channel some days ago, but when did you start this live project? The online live I started about just over it was 3 years ago yesterday. May 18th, 3 years ago was when I started my first online stream. And it was, in fact, this very album that was my first one I played, The Patron Saint of Murderers. And yeah, I've been doing it ever since. In my early stages of live, I only played on Friday nights at 8 o'clock in the Pacific time zone where I'm at in Washington State. And it's really not a great time frame for playing, so I didn't get much traction. I'm hoping to get more traction by playing a little more friendly times and far more often. It seems to be working. I mean, I've been getting a lot more people in here, you know, chatting and viewing and stuff, which is always just completely awesome. And I've got some stats that are showing, you know, so obviously I've got, you know, at least one person watching on YouTube. Looks like I got 3 people watching on Twitch. I got, you know, people watching on Kick and VK. VK's interesting. That's a Russian website. I don't think I've ever had anyone chat from VK. I usually have 10 or 12 people watching on Nemo TV. So it's all really cool. Baja Bless says, stream looks great on all fronts. Thank you very much. And glad to hear things are going well. Yeah, I'm real pleased with it. It's definitely been seeing a little bit of growth. And I'm seriously considering, I was talking earlier about the keyboard video that I might make. And there's a series of videos I've been seriously considering making. I definitely want to make them, but I just have some logistic stuff to work out for some of how I'm going to get the information down. But there are a lot of like music instruction channels on YouTube. I want to do kind of a more philosophical type of a thing. So I want to delve in, for example, one of the first videos I will make if I do this, when I do this, will be titled What I Learned from Isaac Albanese. And the gist of it will be that Albanese had a pretty privileged life. Isaac Albanese, for those that don't know, was a Spanish composer in the late 1800s and wrote amazing music. You may recognize this is. Something might be going on with my wireless. My battery's died again. Normally a set of batteries will last like 6 hours, and I've had 2 sets of batteries go out in less than 3 hours. I am going to get new batteries in a moment. That'd be an incredible niche. Haven't heard of that before. People would benefit. I think it would be good. And so, you know, like Isaac Albanese had a fairly privileged life, and he traveled a lot. So he wrote pieces like Asturias, best known as Leyenda. That's what I was about to play there, and a lot of people would recognize that. And the title comes from Asturias, the place. The song Cordoba is about the Alhambra Castle in Cordoba, Spain. And, you know, Cadiz and a lot of these songs that he put together were inspired by the places he went. So I'd like to do a video talking about, well, maybe you're not going to end up being a traveler like Albanese was, but, you know, what could you do? Where could you get inspiration from places like walking down an alley in your hometown, or sitting next to some broken down shack in the desert, you know, or just going on a hike. You know, it doesn't have to be some kind of crazy world travel kind of thing. So that's the type of video that I want to do. And then the second one I would make would probably be about John Coltrane, who I think is one of the biggest influences to the way I play guitar, even though he played saxophone. To my knowledge, he was never a guitar player at all. So that's kind of, like I said, I kind of want to logistically get the ideas together for how that would all fit in. And because a lot of people come in my stream and they point out that I have very high production value for a music stream, and I again, like I was talking about with cover tunes, I will only do a cover tune if I can do justice to it. And I would definitely want to do justice to those things. And I've got a list of like 20 different, what I learned from things. Joe Satriani's in there, James Young of Styx, all kinds of stuff. Darth Riffs coming in from Kick. Hello. Great to see you again. Thank you very much. Always good to have you in chat with us. I am going to put up the break screen and go grab a set of batteries. Hopefully my other set is charged up. I'm not sure why these are going out. Maybe they didn't fully charge or something. I'm not sure. I love using rechargeables because it would just be such a waste to not use them. But if my other set is not charged up, then I might not have much more of a show to do. So let's see what happens. So I'll be back in a moment. And while I'm out, enjoy this fine music by the Mad Poet. See how these work out. Maybe we'll be able to do some more. These were not fully charged, but they look like I've got a battery meter on my unit here, so I can kind of see what we got a little bit of. Let's see here. Baja Blessed says, you've got the talent and skill, know-how, and production value. You've got to take advantage of it. I agree with that, and I appreciate the sentiment there. Absolutely. I think they would be very good videos for me to make. I think they'd be very fun. I think they'd be enjoyable, and I think I can. I think I could pull it off. Yeah. Like so I just got to get the logistics together. I know like on the Albanese ones, I'm going to want to go out and get some on location shots for a few things, but a lot of it will be talking head type video, and those lights are really bright. That's why I wear sunglasses. Covered in sweat. Awesome. Got some batteries that seem to be working. Let's do this. This song is called Voices of the Soulless. Oh, memories ambient grunge must be memories from YouTube, and is now watching on Twitch. Is that correct? Is that what just happened, or is that just a crazy coincidence? Okay, awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. Do It Pruitt says, I lied. I have another question. This makes me curious as I understand how much effort goes into this. What is your goal with streaming? Why do you do it? Great question. And this is a question that I think I'm not supposed to answer the way I'm about to, the way that I'm going to answer it. Because the answer you're supposed to give to why do I stream is I just do it for myself. I don't care if I ever get successful. I just do this for myself. It's my own little hobby. It doesn't matter at all. And when you see great, big, massive streamers with, 7,000 people, watching them, and hundreds of thousands or millions of followers or subscribers or whatever it is. So you're supposed to say, I'm just doing it for fun. I'm not. I do this because I love performing. And I would like to actually engage a larger and larger audience all the time. That is my actual goal. That is why I'm doing it. There's another side to that answer as well, though. And that is that I am an introvert. And not just a little bit of an introvert. Sarah and I are both very introverted people. Like, she's gone for a week. She's actually gone for more than a week. She left yesterday. She's not going to be back for over a week. I'm totally fine. I'm not going to interact in person with anyone for like 10 days. Cool. I'm just introverted. I can just sit here and play guitar. And even if I didn't have students or do streams or anything, I'd be totally fine because I'm introverted. And so that makes streaming just a really, really great, just a really great platform for me because I don't have to go out and interact with people. I don't like bars. I was talking to someone a while back, and they talked about the bar fights they'd been in. And I said, I've never been in a bar fight. They're like, how could you be 50 years old and never been in a bar? I'm like, I don't go to bars. You can't get in a bar fight if you're not at a bar. And this, we did a show with Hades Machine, punk band I played with for a few years. Great band, so much fun. I love Hades Machine. Jake, who I mentioned earlier, heads that up. Duncan, who I dedicated the song to from earlier on his album, he and I played together in Hades Machine. It's super fun. And I remember this one show. We went to this bar to do a show, and there was this drunk guy that apparently was going through a divorce, and he was just trying to cause trouble with us. And he was trying, and we're like, dude, we just want to come in, set up our stuff, play a show. And this guy was trying to pick a fight with us. And it's like, this is why I don't like people. This is why I don't go to bars. And I shouldn't say, when I say I don't like people, I'm not talking about persons. I'm not talking about individuals. Individuals, I like. People, en masse, I don't want to be around. So this is a great way for me to do shows. And I don't got to lug amplifiers around and all of that stuff. So it's an awesome platform. But ultimately, my goal is, yes, I would like to have a much larger viewership going on. And I hope to get that. Of course, that's part of why I want to do some of these videos, to get out to a larger audience. I recognize that as the Mad Poet, and not doing any singing yet, I do a type of music that does not appeal to a particularly large audience. So I'm working against my own self-interest just in the type of music I'm doing. And I probably sing well enough to grab my acoustic guitar and strum some chords and, do covers of all of the popular songs by Adele and Justin Bieber and all that. And but that's not what I want to do. So I don't necessarily think I want to become some sort of a rock star, but I would like to engage a larger audience. And this is how I hope to do it. That's an excellent question, Pruitt. Digging it. Yeah, it sounds like Do It Pruitt is also a bit on the introverted side. So yeah, and I think, you're right. There's nothing wrong with wanting to grow into a larger stream, but I feel like there's this thing where you're not ever supposed to say it. You're not supposed to say, I'm doing this so I can succeed at it. And you know, it's I think it's very much on par with the idea that you're never supposed to say that you're good at something. You know, I remember seeing this documentary years ago about some ancient scripts that had been found. I don't remember what they were, but some very ancient texts and written in some dead language. And so they went to these guys that were experts in this stuff. And at one point, one of the guys said, you know, for these to be a forgery, this would have to be done by someone who's better at this than we are, and there isn't anybody. And then he immediately said, I'm sorry, but we really are the world's experts. And I'm like, why should you have to apologize for being an expert at something? I am a good guitar player. I'm not afraid to admit that. I try not to be arrogant about it, and I still take guitar lessons. You know, you're never going to hear me say that I'm the best guitar player ever, because I'm not. There are guitar players out there I watch and I'm like, tip of the hat to you, my friend. Well done. You know, John Lowry, Kevin Hughes, Anna Vidovich, Zhu Feiyong, Pepe Romero. I was like, well done. And these people have earned this. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that you're good at something or saying what your true motivation behind something is. And if more people would just have some on-the-nose communication, life would be a lot easier. Politicians could really learn something from that. I don't talk politics much, but politicians could really use a little Randy advice. And Dewitt says, you know, it's like it's a taboo thing. You started out wanting to be a full-time streamer, but learned that the big streamers have no chat interaction. And yeah, I agree. And it's a concern, you know, because this level that I'm at right here, this is a great level. You get a few people coming in asking these really great questions, and I can just sit here and riff on it. But you know, if I get to the point where there's 1,000 people watching, I'm not going to be able to answer everyone's questions. It's just, that's not how it works. So, you know, what do you do with that? So, you know, there's definitely a flip side to the success. And you know, the other thing to recognize is, you know, I think a lot of people, they will get into some sort of thing where they're putting themselves out in public. And if you put yourself out in public, then you need to be ready for what happens when you put yourself in public. There are going to be people who hate me. Like I talked earlier about that guy who found out that I'm planning to do a stream in drag and was so offended he had to tell me he was unfollowing me. Okay, cool. You don't... There's me fidgeting again. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be people who don't like what you do. There are going to be people who say, oh, the Mad Poet, he's a crappy guitar player. And it's like, oh, okay, you know what? If you don't like my music, that's okay. And so I think if you're going to step into any kind of public realm, that you have to be ready for the put downs. You know, you've got to be ready for the fact that things are going to change. And like right now, I'm at a point where I can answer all these questions and it's awesome. And if I actually achieve my goal, then that will no longer be the case. And hopefully I will, if that occurs, I will evolve into that and continue to have an entertaining streaming session going on. That would be my hope. Let's see here. Memories Ambient Grunge says, don't know about Twitch, but with YouTube algorithm is difficult these days. Making your playlist project, you discovered a lot of talented artists, but never. Yes. And you know, and this is a great thing to talk about too. This is so important that a lot of people talk about how the digital age, we've gotten rid of the gatekeepers, right? So anybody can succeed. Well, anyone could have succeeded prior to the internet too, but most people didn't. And there's a very significant element of luck involved. You know, prior to the internet, if we look at music, you know, and acting is another example, art is another example, there are different kinds of gates you would have to get through. So as music, you would have to get a record deal because, you know, You didn't have a studio in your freaking office or your bedroom like people do now. So you'd have to get a record deal. If you're an author, you need to get a publisher. If you were, an artist, you would need to get into a gallery. If you were an actor, you would need to get an agent to put you in a movie. So you get these gatekeepers that would get in the way of that. And we say, we got rid of all the gatekeepers. Well, we didn't. We've changed the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers are no longer people, to a certain extent. You could say that there's kind of a gatekeeping element to really large channels. Like if you look at like Glenn Fricker or Ola England or Adam Neely on YouTube music channels, if they promote you, it's a massive help. So they're a type of gatekeeper, but more important than gatekeepers of that nature, because they're not trying to gatekeep. But more important than that is the algorithm itself has become a far more functional gatekeeper than the old system ever was. So yeah, technically you could get discovered on YouTube and make it huge, whatever, but the algorithm doesn't want you to succeed. The algorithm wants most people to fail. And so there's all these great artists out there who no one is following because they're not showing up. The algorithm is stopping them from showing up. And that's very unfortunate that they've put the algorithm in to work that way. And as Memories Ambient Grunge says, she hopes that her playlist helps them a little. Maybe being on her playlist, I know she's put one of my pieces on her playlist, me doing Malaguena on classical guitar. And so that makes it a little bit more likely that someone will see that, and that would be awesome. But there's only so much you can do. And yeah, it is sad. Yeah, there are downsides to growth. That's absolutely true. And I think, the main thing is just be ready for it and be willing to make the changes. Do It Pruitt says, I feel like I'm entertaining, but everyone does what I do, so it's hard. And I have seen multiple of Pruitt's streams. I've watched him primarily on Live Space. I've also seen him a little bit on Twitch. And I agree, Do It Pruitt, he speaks very well. He's a solid communicator. Like me, you can give him a question, he'll start riffing on it and come up with all kinds of great ideas. He's very interested in helping other streamers. You can go and ask, hey, how did you accomplish this thing I see on your screen? And he'll go off on it, and then he'll go make a video about it. So very cool. But and on the flip side of that, this is an interesting thing from my perspective, because there are almost no Twitch stream, and I don't mean this is put down, because I really like a lot of streamers out there. But almost no one is doing something like what I'm doing here, with all the lights and the choreography and everything synchronized and all original music. Scene of Action is one of those, but he's no longer streaming. He would have like 300 viewers every time he went on. I don't know why he quit, or if he quit. I don't know if he'll come back or whatever. But at the same time, doing something different clearly is not a guarantee that you're going to get viewership. So it's this really weird kind of, dichotomous kind of thing that, unfortunately, there is not an answer to that. There really isn't. And I think that the denial of luck playing a part. I mean, because how did Do It Pruitt find me? We both happened to be on the Live Space beta. If that hadn't happened, he probably wouldn't be here, right? He probably wouldn't have found my stream. Memories found my stream on YouTube completely by chance. That you guys finding me was just an act of luck. And now, that luck has occurred both for you and for me. And, maybe you tell a friend about it, maybe they come watch, and that could increase things. Or maybe you're like myself and Do It Pruitt, and you just hang out at home all day and you don't ever tell anyone about anything. And there's nothing wrong with that. No one has to go tell anyone about my stream. But there are a lot of aspects of that. And I will say this, though luck does play a work, you should never take that to mean that luck is all of it. Because if you don't do the hard work, the luck isn't going to be enough. People don't appreciate hard work. People is a loose term. Yeah, and that's solid. Like Robert Downey Jr. And I really like Downey. He's a great example. Robert Downey Jr.'s first acting gig was when he was 6 years old. Darn it. Just on that one song. My feet are not working right. So Downey got his first acting gig when he was 6. And so we could look at this two ways. Maybe when Downey was 4, he put together his CV, started hitting the streets, got himself an agent, started making connections in the film community in Los Angeles, and got himself an acting gig by 6? Or was it more likely that Robert Downey Sr. was already in the film industry and well respected and liked by his peers, and they just needed a kid to be in a movie, so they used his kid? Now, that was luck. Downey has worked very hard in his career. He's made some mistakes. He's done some things very well. He has absolutely worked at it. But if that initial piece of luck hadn't been there, I mean, if his dad had moved to Minnesota and not continued in the film industry, Downey wouldn't have got that first gig. He might be, I don't know, managing a Fred Meyer now or something. Working in a factory somewhere. So, luck, yeah, and Pruitt is right here. Luck isn't all, but it is a factor. And when people deny that factor, I think that's a very grave error that they're making. Yeah, me and that pedal, I agree. But clearly, I want to play this next song. And I just mentioned earlier, Adam Neely, Glenn Fricker, and Ola England. This song is about Ola. He's heard it. He liked it. It's called CWO. If you want to know what that means, find the video on YouTube. It's adorable. Because I'm adorable. Last song of this album, but we're not done yet. CWO. Good stuff. This is without a doubt the slowest I have gone to date. That is 3 hours to do one album, and that is freaking fantastic. So fun. Okay, let's do the old switcheroo thing here. A little of this, a little of that. Turn this knob. Click this button. Hit save. And find my mouse on the screen, which is impossible sometimes because I have 4 monitors. Okay, we should be on the new album now. Let's get that sheet music open back up. And there. And make sure that button is clicked and make sure that knob is turned. And then we just wait for the sheet music to open up. And let's see, everything looks like it's in the right place. Cool. I can blame it on you. You know, that's funny, man. Every time I'm in like the grocery store or something, if something's going wrong, I'm just like, oh, you guys can blame that on me. That's my fault. That is totally my thing. I love it. All right, this album is called City of Souls. It's my 52nd album. This first song is called I, the Archangel of Forgotten Grief. water. I've been going 3 hours, 20 minutes, which means I got about 40 minutes left. So again, we're gonna have to pick and choose what we're gonna play here. And I am totally okay with that. I'm also noticing that I got this sheet music set up in a slightly unfriendly way. That'll be a little better. So let's see what we want to play here. Let's do a song. Let's skip up to 3. That one was weird. Lots of flats, maybe. That song was in E Phrygian. Phrygian is a mode, and so you have your standard major and minor scales. And this may have been what was hitting you in a weird way. So you have your standard minor scale. And so you got 8 notes there, that's 1 octave. And in this case, that's E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D. And we start back over at E. So the second note there in F sharp, in a Phrygian mode, we would in fact flat that. So we would have a flatted second note of our scale. So that may be, and I do that a lot. It's not uncommon for me to use the Phrygian mode, but that may have stood out to you in some way in that. And it may also be that just, my note selection in the guitar solos may have hit you in an odd way. Because my guitar solos are improvised. So it's when I do a recording, I can be playing along, doing a recording of a lead guitar and be like, that's not what I'm looking for, and start it over. Of course, even though it's online, digital still, this is live. So hit a weird note, and it's just going to be a weird note. So, but yeah, that may very well be, yeah. So if you've got a reasonably good ear, that, understanding modes is a really interesting aspect of music theory. And I've been working with, I've got a student named Michael who has released music. He's a fairly experienced guitar player. He plays very well. He got some very cool music, and he's really been wanting to, over the last few years, upgrade the way he thinks about music, which as a music educator, I'm strongly in favor of. And so we've been doing a lot of this, talking about, okay, when you do that scale, what happens when you flat that 2? What happens if you sharp the 6? If we're in a major scale and we sharp the 4, turn it into a Lydian, what does that do? If we flat the 7 of the major scale, turn it into a Mixolydian, what does that do? If we put in that diminished 5th and use a Locrian mode, what does that do? What about when we go to exotic scales and we're using a Phrygian with a sharp 3 or a Lydian with a sharp 2? What does that do? How does that feel? And ultimately, as a musician, your job is to manipulate people emotionally. It sounds like this kind of terrible junior high level thing, they're just manipulating people's emotions, but that's what we do. And if you think about, I should say one of the better ways to think about this manipulation that musicians do is in a film score. And think about, so the Beatles wrote great music. Most people will agree with that. Not everyone likes the Beatles, I understand, but the majority consensus is the Beatles wrote great music. Now, John Williams, who wrote the score for Star Wars, wonderful score. John Williams writes great music, but if you take the score out of Star Wars and put the Beatles in, it's no longer great. It doesn't fit, right? It's not, John Williams wrote the right music for that. So the music is all about the context and what you're trying to go after. And so every mode, every chord, every musical idea is going to have a feeling associated with it. And that's what you're doing. if we put the Beatles into, if you just put a Beatles album under Star Wars, you're not going to get excited at the right places. You know, John Williams did a great job on it, and John Williams did a great job on every score I've ever heard him do. Ennio Morricone is probably my favorite of all the film composers, and go watch a lot of the old spaghetti westerns, and you're listening to Morricone. The stuff that Murray Gold did for the recent Doctor Who stuff, I shouldn't say the recent, from Christopher Eccleston, Tennant through Matt Smith, and Peter Capaldi. He actually quit when the showrunners quit, and they went to Jody, which is unfortunate because I think his music would have made that would have done very well with the newer portrayals of the Doctor. So really that's a great example of, in those films the music is manipulating your emotions, and even George Lucas has said that he believes the success of Star Wars has more to do with John Williams than with him. So yeah. That's a great question. Okay, you wish you would have gotten into lessons. Lessons are going to make a difference. Learning by ear is great, but understanding what you're doing, particularly if you have a reasonable level of analytical capacity, being able to analyze what's going on with music is going to be massive for you. Technical modes as Phrygian and other on regular tuning or special one. So any of these can be done with any tuning. Absolutely. And they can be done on any instrument. So a Phrygian mode is a Phrygian. If you're in drop D or double drop D or half step down, also known as Baroque tuning, it's the same on a piano, on a saxophone. So once you understand that all it is, a Phrygian, and you did spell that correctly, by the way, well done. So your Phrygian mode is simply a minor scale with the second note flatted. A Dorian mode would be your minor scale with the sixth note sharped. And by flatted or sharped, in this case, we're meaning moving it down or up one fret or one key on a piano. You have your major, which is also known as an Ionian. And if you sharp the 4, you get a Lydian. If you flat the 7, you get a Mixolydian. If you take your Phrygian mode and then additionally flat the 5, you get a Locrian mode, which is diminished. I occasionally play things in Locrian mode. Locrian modes, it's a way to play. Yeah, exactly. It's a way to play. So if you understand what basically the recipe for the mode is, you can play it anywhere. Cool. No, and that's very cool that you do hear that. And that does indicate you have a good ear. And something that surprises a lot of people about me when I say this is I have a bad ear. It's probably a significant part of why I've struggled for so long with my singing. And so I do not hear things very well. It's really tough for me to learn music by ear. It's tough for me to match pitches. And so when I'm doing this stuff, I am a very analytical person. So for me, this understanding of how modes worked, that was huge for me. And when Kevin introduced me to this stuff, I was like, yes, this is beautiful. And I sunk in, and he was thrilled because I was one of those students who was actually going for it. Most students don't go for it, no matter what instrument you're on. It's a frustration of music teachers all throughout history on all instruments. So when we get those students, like I've got Michael and Susan, and right now overall I've got a smaller student load than normal, but I've got excellent students. They're so good. They practice, they do stuff, and that's just fantastic. So yeah, so I would strongly encourage you to take some lessons. Pick an instrument. Find yourself a competent instructor, either online or in person. And it's great now. Like a few years ago, I took a lesson from Liran Raffaelli, who is a jazz player in New York. And we just got together on video chat, and I'm taking a lesson from this person. Most of my students are actually still over in Western Washington. There's no way they'd be able to get over here for that. I don't even do in-person lessons anymore. We don't have the insurance for when we moved out here. We're like, we're not even going to get the business insurance for the house. So Boom. Yeah. And so yeah, you can find, you decide you're going to play saxophone or whatever. Yeah, you'll be able to find someone. It's great. And obviously, I mean, you're a streamer. You have the capacity to get sound and video over a video chat very easily. So it's great. Give us a dot. Yeah, and memories. And here's another thing. I am very analytical. If you are better at doing this stuff by ear, that's not wrong. There is no right or wrong way to do these things. You got to find the way that works for you. And I've met some musicians who do things very intuitively, and they just know which notes they like. And I've met other musicians who are more like myself, who are much more analytical. And you can create great music both ways. And you can create garbage music both ways. And I've done both. I've got some songs I think are great, and I've got some songs I think aren't that great. So, yeah, fun stuff. Give us a dot. This next song is called At the Gates of the Empire. Great question, Pruitt. Great question. Do it, Pruitt on Twitch asks, says, your songs all have names. Are there hidden stories behind every song, or is it just music? The truth here is always that my song titles have no meaning at all. There are very few song titles that will have some story behind it, but it's such a small number of them. Jeff Stark coming in from Facebook. Welcome, my man Jeff. Great to see you. I hope you are doing incredibly awesome. Jeff is a fellow musician that we knew each other over when we both lived in the Seattle area. We have both since moved out into other areas. And he's just a super cool guy. Great on stage. I saw he played in a band with my friends Vivian and Ray for a while. Vivian and Ray are just some of the coolest people you'll ever meet. Absolutely adore them. And they had such a great vibe on stage. Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. And yeah, I'm doing great over here, man. We're having a good time. My only problem is I can't find it's getting warm again, and I can't find my bow and arrow. I was looking around last night. I was like, where's my archery stuff? And I don't know. I remember it being in this office last time when I was putting up the boards and stuff. And I'm like, where did I put that? So that's the only problem I got. And Jeff also says, loves those two, Ray and Viv. They're fantastic. So great. Thanks so much for stopping in. I haven't had anyone chatting with us on Facebook for a while. So great to see that the Facebook thing is working. Yes. And so this has been a fantastic stream. And I again want to thank everyone who's come in. I know I've got some new followers out there today and a lot of new viewers. And it's just been super awesome. I actually do have a 4-hour limit on my streams because of the software I use for multi-streaming. I would have to pay for one tier higher to get rid of the 4-hour time limit. So I got about 20 minutes left here, 15 minutes maybe. You feel like you're limited by your hearing. If I'm interpreting your question correctly, I know that English is not your first language. You feel like your hearing limits you to doing things such as improvised solos. I think that's the question. And that's common. The word in English for this is called audiation. Audiation is the capacity to hear something in your head that you're not actually hearing. And not like the craziness, like hearing voices, but like one form of audiation would be to look at sheet music. And this is something I'm not very good at. To look at sheet music and be able to play the music in your head. And some people can do that really, really well. They'll know they can look at the score for an orchestra and know what that orchestra is going to sound like. That whole symphony or the sonnet or whatever. So that's one form of audiation. Another form of audiation, which most people do, is just getting a song stuck in your head. Like just the other day, I had Georgia on My Mind as sung by Mildred Bailey, just completely stuck in my head. And I didn't mind at all, because that's a fantastic version of that song. And Mildred is she's awesome. So that's another form of audiation. And then the other way is like when you're improvising, I will often kind of hear where I want to go. I'll kind of have an idea of what I'm going to do over the next couple seconds. And so that's another form of audiation. It's more about to know which note I have to play after. Yeah, and that is, well, this is one of the big questions, and people ask me about this. Students particularly ask me about how do you decide what you're going to play when you're playing, that fast. And part of it, there's kind of multiple parts to this. Part of that was improvised. But one, I see as soon as I look at my fretboard, and in that case, I was playing an E minor. And that's just because that's where my hand happened to hit. And so I can immediately, because I've done this for literally almost 4 decades, I can immediately visualize, okay, here's where my finger hit, here's a scale I can use, and I start playing notes that are in that scale. I visualize that scale or that mode. And now that could also have been an E Phrygian, because I didn't actually play the second note of the scale at any point. So if I had gone on, I could have made a decision on the fly about what to do. So there are some other scales that it could not have been because of the notes I did play. And so you're making those decisions about where to, so which notes in the scale am I going to play? And those are the decisions you're going to make. And so that is both listening and analytical. And it's something that, I could sit here and talk for 2 hours and you still wouldn't just be able to do it. It's something that definitely requires a lot of getting on an instrument and listening to the music and playing the music and finding your way around. Do Pruitt says, where's the best place to message you? I have a little stream feedback I'd like to share. Too long for a stream. Totally cool. You can hit me on my Discord, which you're on Twitch right now. There should be a link to the Discord there. If you're not a Discord person, go to themadpoet.net. And there's a contact page on there that will go straight to my email. And that's probably the easiest place just to get a straight message to me, is that. Memories from Twitch says, I did it by feeling without knowing the mode or series of notes. Yeah, absolutely. And without having that kind of foundational work to play with, then you will have a tough time finding that. And we got Conjero14, and apologies if I said your username incorrectly. Hello to you as well. Thank you very much for coming in from kick.com. I don't believe I've seen you in our chat before, but thank you for being here. We're actually moving in toward the end of the show here. And because, as I said, I do have a 4-hour limit because of some of the software I use. I haven't upgraded to the next tier yet. So we're going to play one more song today, and then we'll chat a little more. But Conjero14, I do appreciate you coming in. And just so you know, I'm the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. For anyone who's coming in a little late here and don't know what we're about, this is what we're about. We're about instrumental rock and stuff like that. And we've got a pretty good group of people that have kind of come up with all of this. Perfect. Love having new people here. Thank you very much for stopping in. And also, as I've said before, on I stream out to 14 different platforms. On most of those platforms, I am unable to see if a person has given me a follow or anything. So for any new followers out there, new viewers, thank you very much for coming in. I really, really appreciate it. Conjero14, Kenjero14 asks, do I play bass? I do play bass a bit. It is not my primary instrument by a long shot, but I enjoy bass, and a well-played bass is freaking awesome. I have one bass student right now, and he's also, I think he's probably my youngest student right now, 11 years old, I think. I've had younger students in the past, but Jack is awesome. He every once in a while comes in on YouTube and watches us a bit. Jeff Stark is turning it up over on Facebook. I'm going to urge the rest of you to do the same. As the intro message on my streams say, to get the maximum sensory input from this audio event, it is necessary to minimize the load resistance to the potentiometer in one sound reproduction system. It is hard to communicate with multiple flat platforms, but it is fun. I've had a great time with it. The Discord link is not working. Thank you very much. Do it, Pruitt. I will check that and see if what's going on with that. But yeah, I would say go ahead and hit me up through themadpoet.net, and I would love to hear your feedback, because I do respect you as a streamer, and I know you've got good input. YouTube gets 5 seconds more latency than Twitch. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I know Memories is over watching on both, so that's cool. All right, this is going to be the last song of the evening, and then I'm going to run out of time. And this is, whenever I play this particular album, for those who may not know, I'm actually playing my 52nd album right now. The album is titled City of Souls. And Pruitt was asking just a few minutes ago about, do my song titles have meanings? And for the most part, no, they don't. And this song title also has no meaning. But this song, I think more than almost any other song, even more than the Patron Saint of Murderers that we played earlier, which I think that song title matches the music. I think this music and song title match up better than almost anything I've ever done, because when you hear this song, at least in my opinion, it feels like you are, in fact, after hours in the Blackwood mortuary. Yeah, this stream is going to cut out in just probably about 2 minutes if I don't shut her down. So I'm going to... Oh, and it looks like Pruitt got into Discord, so cool. That's excellent. Shoot me a message on either one of those, and I will check it out. I'm going to go cool down a little bit, and I'm going to go refresh my water. Kinjaro14, wow, thank you very much for the compliment. That is a reasonable example of what I do. And I agree, Pruitt, this has been a great stream. Thank you very much. Everyone out there, I've had some just awesome questions from you guys tonight. I had a great time answering them. Had a lot of fun playing the music. And I will probably be back tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly what time. But we'll do it again. We'll do it some more. I'm not sure which albums I'm going to play tomorrow, but it should be lots of fun. You like the lights when I hit the high pitch. Nice. Now, all of the lights are programmed in advance. Everything's choreographed. So, like I said, this is a pretty good example of what we do. So anyone out there who's new to the stream, again, thanks so much for coming in. Before this thing cuts off, I'm going to cut it off for us. So that's it. I'm the Mad Poet. You are an audience. We are the Mad Poet Society. And until next time, I will see you